In 1994, while most people were still trying to figure out what this World Wide Web thing was all about, 3 college students in California were busy creating what would become the first true social network. David Bonnet, John Resner, and Bowen Johnson didn't set out to build Facebook before Facebook existed, but that's exactly what they accomplished when they launched Beverly Hills Internet in a cramped Santa Monica office. Originally conceived as a web hosting service for small businesses, their platform would evolve into something far more revolutionary: GeoCities, the digital neighborhood where 38 million people would build their first homes on the internet. The concept was brilliantly simple yet unprecedented. Instead of treating the web as a sterile collection of corporate brochures and academic papers, GeoCities organized user-created websites into themed neighborhoods that mimicked real-world communities. Users could claim their digital homestead in Area 51 for science fiction enthusiasts, Times Square for entertainment content, Madison Avenue for business sites, or Wall Street for financial discussions. There were dozens of themed areas, including Hollywood for movie buffs, Nashville for country music fans, and even a Heartland section for family-oriented content. Each neighborhood came with its own personality, visual themes, and community guidelines, creating distinct digital cultures that fostered genuine connections between strangers who shared common interests. What made GeoCities truly revolutionary wasn't just the neighborhood concept, but how it democratized web publishing at a time when creating a website required serious technical expertise. The platform provided free web hosting, simple page-building tools, and most importantly, a sense of community that the early internet desperately lacked. Users weren't just publishing content into the void, they were joining neighborhoods where their digital neighbors would visit, leave guestbook messages, and form lasting friendships. The typical GeoCities site was a glorious mess of animated GIFs, rainbow-colored text, MIDI background music, and under-construction banners. But these amateur aesthetics represented something profound. Ordinary people claiming their space on the digital frontier and expressing themselves without corporate mediation or algorithmic curation. By 1995, the service had grown so rapidly that the founders rebranded it as GeoCities, and the numbers were staggering for the era. The platform was adding thousands of new residents daily, with users spending hours crafting their digital homes and exploring their neighbors' creations. Unlike today's social media where content disappears into algorithmic feeds, GeoCities pages were permanent addresses where users invested serious time and emotional energy. People would spend weeks perfecting their sites, learning basic HTML, trading tips with neighbors, and building web rings that connected related sites across different neighborhoods. The platform fostered a culture of digital DIY that encouraged experimentation and creativity over polish and professionalism. The community aspects of GeoCities were far ahead of their time and wouldn't be replicated until the social media boom over a decade later. Neighborhoods had their own mailing lists, chat rooms, and community leaders who helped newcomers get established. Users could browse their neighbors' sites, discover new communities through exploration rather than algorithmic recommendation, and participate in neighborhood events and contests. The platform introduced features like visitor counters, guest books, and site rings that created social feedback loops and encouraged community engagement. GeoCities residents took pride in their neighborhoods, often featuring proud resident of Hollywood banners and actively promoting their digital communities to friends and family in the offline world. Yahoo's acquisition of GeoCities in January 1999 for $3.57 billion represented the largest internet acquisition up to that point, signaling just how valuable this digital real estate had become. With over 19 million users at the time of acquisition, GeoCities was the third most visited site on the entire internet, trailing only AOL and Yahoo itself. The acquisition seemed like a perfect match. Yahoo needed content and community to compete with AOL's walled garden approach, while GeoCities needed resources to handle its explosive growth and technical infrastructure challenges. Yahoo executives promised to preserve the community spirit while providing better tools, more reliable hosting, and integration with Yahoo's growing ecosystem of web services. However, Yahoo fundamentally misunderstood what made GeoCities special and immediately began implementing changes that would slowly strangle the platform. The company's first major blunder came in 2001 when it attempted to claim broad rights over all user-generated content, sparking massive user backlash and an exodus to competing platforms like Tripod and Angel Fire. Yahoo backed down from the most egregious terms, but the trust between the platform and its communities had been irreparably damaged. More damaging was Yahoo's gradual transformation of GeoCities from a community-focused platform into just another web hosting service, removing neighborhood-specific features, eliminating community leaders, and treating user sites as generic content rather than digital homes. Yahoo's systematic dismantling of GeoCities accelerated throughout the 2000s as the company struggled to compete with Google's search dominance and Facebook's social networking revolution. The rise of MySpace and later Facebook offered users more sophisticated social features and better aesthetic control, making GeoCities' amateur hour aesthetics seem dated rather than charming. Yahoo stopped investing in new features for GeoCities, allowed technical infrastructure to decay, and began pushing users toward Yahoo's other services rather than nurturing the unique community culture that had made the platform special. By 2008, GeoCities had fallen to 45th place in web traffic rankings, a shadow of its former influence despite still hosting millions of active sites. The final blow came in April 2009 when Yahoo announced it would shut down GeoCities entirely, giving users just 7 months to save their digital creations before permanently closing the service. The announcement sent shockwaves through internet preservation communities and former GeoCities residents who realized that millions of unique websites representing over a decade of amateur web culture were about to disappear forever. Archive Team and other digital preservation groups launched desperate efforts to save as much GeoCities content as possible, but they could only preserve a fraction of the platform's vast digital neighborhoods. On October 26, 2009, Yahoo pulled the plug on GeoCities in the United States, effectively bulldozing the internet's first major social network and erasing countless digital memories in the process. The death of GeoCities represented more than just another failed .com. It marked the end of the internet's experimental phase and the beginning of the corporate-controlled social media era we know today. GeoCities had proven that ordinary people wanted to create and share content online, that digital communities could form around shared interests, and that the internet's greatest potential lay not in top-down publishing, but in user-generated content and social connections. However, Yahoo's mismanagement also revealed how vulnerable digital communities are when they depend on corporate platforms that prioritize profit over preservation. The loss of GeoCities' 38 million user sites represents one of the largest destructions of human creative output in history, equivalent to burning down a library containing millions of books, photo albums, and personal diaries. Today, as we grapple with the limitations and dangers of algorithmic social media, GeoCities' neighborhood model offers valuable lessons about what we lost in the transition to corporate-controlled platforms. Facebook and Twitter may have billions of users, but they lack the creative freedom, community ownership, and digital permanence that made GeoCities special. The platform's DIY aesthetic and amateur enthusiasm have been replaced by polished feeds designed to maximize engagement and advertising revenue rather than foster genuine human connections and creative expression. GeoCities proved that the social internet didn't need venture capital, growth hacking, or surveillance capitalism to thrive. It just needed tools, community, and the simple human desire to build something meaningful in digital space. Yahoo's destruction of this digital neighborhood serves as a cautionary tale about the fragility of online communities and the importance of digital preservation in an era where our most personal expressions exist only as data on someone else's servers.